It's 3:15, and that means it's time for...
The Real Deal with Bill McNeil.
That's right. Welcome once again to The Real Deal with Bill McNeil. I'm your host, Bill McNeil, and you're probably wondering exactly what is the real deal today.
Hey, good question.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. I got my good friend Jervain Dargan, former assistant editor of Milestone Comics, the man behind Animated Concepts, upcoming comic book company that you definitely want to be on the lookout. We normally have very deep conversations here, Jervain. You and I we tackle the tough subjects because you're one of the few people I can get on the channel that will talk about this stuff and also not get me kicked off. How you doing?
Well, we're going to test that theory today.
Absolutely. So, I don't know. There's certain things that I'm seeing throughout entertainment. You know, within comic books, we look at the upcoming Hellfire Gala. We're seeing a lot of gender nonconformity is what I would call it. A lot of traditionally male characters wearing dresses, glitz out to the max, things that you would more associate, not with like male characters. We're seeing it kind of in Hollywood. Recently, we got the first looks at, I think they're calling the character the Fairy D, or the Fairy G, the fairy godmother from an upcoming remake where, more gender nonconformity. We're seeing a lot in even animation and stuff for little kids these days. And I don't know. I just want to, it feels like there's an agenda at this point, and it's not really an agenda for me. I don't feel like they're trying to influence me or anything. But at this point, as a father, I got, 2 kids, 1 kid, another kid coming on the way in a few weeks. It feels like it's Hollywood and entertainment are trying to influence my children and try to take away a lot of the responsibilities that I'm supposed to have.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the case for that. So it's like when you came to me with this question, and I shared it with a few friends of mine who were both in Hollywood and outside of Hollywood. And I think the consensus is pretty much the same, at least in terms of the first part of the question you framed that you framed for me, which was basically, is Hollywood trying to basically feminize men? And I think everybody pretty much felt that was the case, that they were in a very real way, if not doing that, at least challenging the idea of gender, promoting the idea of non-gender conformity. And it is something that basically, for a number of reasons, which I think everybody on both sides of this can understand, it's a touchy issue. And especially, I think, for parents, it's like we all know that right or wrong, like it or not, how you present in the world can have some real impacts and implications for you. It can affect your mental health. It can affect your ability to be upwardly mobile financially, which I mean by getting a job in society. There are a lot of ways in which gender, whether you accept your gender role or you challenge it, it's going to create a different quality of life, if you will, for you. And I think when it comes to parents, are particularly sensitive about it because they do basically want to help guide their kids through that without necessarily somebody's outside influence. So yeah, it's I guess what I would say is that most people definitely feel like that's the case. And I just don't know if they necessarily want to have that discussion with a bunch of producers in Hollywood.
Yeah, I don't want them to have a place at the table. Yeah. My wife and I, we have our relationship with our children. We know we're guiding them along. We're teaching them things, and they have questions about maybe things we don't think they're ready for. So we give them the answers that they're ready at that time in their development to receive. A 5-year-old isn't ready to receive the same type of information as your daughters who are older.
Yep. No, and that's the case. And when it comes down to it is you don't want to keep anyone from basically expressing themselves in the way that they want to express themselves. And particularly when it comes to entertainment, everybody should be allowed to tell the kind of stories they want to tell, with the kind of characters they want to tell. They also have a responsibility, it is their responsibility, to win the rest of us over as an audience. So just because you put something out there doesn't mean that I, as a parent, particularly when it comes to my kids watching stuff, are basically going to serve up my kids or have my kids be the audience for that. This is something that kind of came up. Well, I'm going to say it came up in one of the conversations we had on Aficionados, where it's simply a case of, it's like, look, at a certain point, you have to win me over as an audience. That's your job. If you're telling a good enough story, if it's entertaining enough, it almost in a sense doesn't matter what ideology you're pushing or what idea you're pushing. If the story's good enough, if it's entertaining enough, then you might be able to get that one under the radar with me. With this thing, with more of the pushing non-gender conformity thing, I think it's one thing when you're doing it towards an adult audience. Like, for instance, and I'll confess, I was a big fan of the, I think it was AJ and the Queen, which starred RuPaul on Netflix. You know, I enjoyed it. My wife didn't have what to do with it, but I enjoyed it. I thought the opening tune was catchy. I always liked RuPaul. Thought he was funny in other things that I've seen, and I thought the story of basically him getting robbed and going this cross country trip and taking kid along, I thought it was entertaining. Is that something that I want my kids to be watching at this point? Probably not. But there's a lot of stuff that I want my kids watching. This stuff that has nothing to do with a drag queen taking a kid cross country on a drag club tour. There's a lot of stuff I don't want them watching. But that's something that's aimed at me. When it comes to something aiming something at your kids, then it's like, yeah, bro, I am going to be a gatekeeper, and I am going to censor it. So I mean. Again, if people want to tell certain stories and characters, knock yourself out. Yeah.
It kind of goes into entertainment in general. Like, do you remember when Netflix first came out and their catalog was a little bit different? It had lots of foreign films that were tackling a lot of taboo subjects you really wouldn't see in American cinema at that point. I think there was a movie, I think it was called XXY. It was, I believe it was a South American film, and it was about a parents with a child that had I don't know, had dual identities as far as gender. They had been born with the reproductive organs of both genders. They were trying to figure out when's the right time to make a decision, and how's the kid going to make the decision. It was an interesting story. Not exactly something I'm willing or ready to watch every single day. I had to be in the right frame of mind. I enjoyed that story. But when I go to my X-Men comic, that's not exactly the type of material I'm wanting to tackle in that story. And it feels a lot of times that they're trying to, when I say they, I'm talking about just entertainment in general, or trying to like push it into things. It's like, this isn't where I want to tackle that story. This isn't the frame of mind I'm in right now. Can you let me have some peace and quiet and enjoy my mutant stories where they go on some adventures and kick some butt?
Well, I'll put it like this. It's like, yes and no. And I'll go back to just what I was saying. Yes and no. I said, there is an expectation that when you're going into your X-Men story, that they're going to have some adventures and kick some butt. But to say that a creator or a storyteller can't tackle an issue like that, that's not something that really any of us can say. All we can say is that if you're going to tackle that, it just better be entertaining. It just better be entertaining, because we can't say that people haven't done it before. The style
of the story and the style of the entertainment.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. With Hellfire Gala, I have no idea what they're going with this. I mean, apparently X of Swords was a test run for this. I have to go back and look at it. Yeah, apparently X of Swords with the dinner party, like I call it the Just Dance saga. But apparently that was the test run for the Hellfire saga thing, and the Hellfire Gala. The whole thing is, at the end of the day, you can get away with just about anything, any kind of, as long as the story is entertaining. You can talk about whatever you want, not however you want it, because however is important. However is the entertaining piece. But you can basically talk about whatever you want, and as long as it's entertaining, then you will find that audience, and then that audience will become a champion advocate for the story and possibly the issue. I mean, the thing is, there was a time when basically you really couldn't talk about gay people publicly in general, not in a positive fashion. And we have to ask ourselves on some level, well, how did that happen? That happened because there were positive portrayals of them in media, which always helps. I mean, if you look at this is what Norman Lear was practically made his bones on, was shows like Maude and Good Times and The Jeffersons, where they definitely challenged and subverted all those stereotypes for what an American sitcom was. All in the Family is the champion of that, and that was with a white bigoted male lead. But why was that so successful? Because Lear was able to do it by basically subverting the expectations of sitcom while also meeting the expectations of sitcom, which means that it was funny. Archie had a foil, and Rob Reiner, because I don't remember his character name. Sally Struthers played.
Yes.
Yeah, they're basically, I forget what he used to call them all the time, but basically, yeah, it's like you had people who fell into those roles but could come out of them the same way. Like the George Jefferson character, which started on All in the Family. What was that character like prior to All in the Family? Not somebody that would be challenging an Archie Bunker type to the degree that George Jefferson did. But it was entertaining. So yeah, it's like I said, you're entitled as a creator and a storyteller, as an artist, to tell whatever story you want to. But it's like, bro, someday you gotta bring in the buckets. You gotta bring in the cash. You gotta bring in the money.
Customers are entitled to say no. That's another part of it, without being ridiculed for whatever reason they decide to say no. And there's another thing that I'm saying. It feels like it's the war on toxic masculinity. But the term seems to mean everything that could be considered masculine. So it's just a war on masculinity, period. And we're moving, we talk about this, removing all forms of masculinity. How often do we see a positive, male role model or father figure in entertainment nowadays? It feels refreshing when you see it. You're like, oh my goodness, a father that loves his kids and can take care of his household, and his wife doesn't want to kick his ass for being an idiot.
Well, you probably have to thank Homer Simpson for that one. But anyway, I mean, yeah, no. So it's like I had a conversation with someone one time, and I will say for me, I could not remember exactly what it was about, but I know it had something to do with sexuality, because when it got to a point where the person said to me, well, you're a cis male and you wouldn't understand. So I was like, now that's the first time I ever heard and I had no idea what they were talking about. So I said, well, what's a cis male? And they said, oh, well, you wouldn't understand. And so this was like basically for those of you who like to do a little bit of debating from time to time. This is what's called a straw man argument, where basically you make a point thinking you're refuting what I'm saying when you're actually not doing that at all, because there is a thing called Google. So I then promptly looked up what cis male meant. And I was like, oh, so basically I can't understand certain things, and I'm not welcome in certain conversations because I like girls. And I like girls exclusively. And it's just like, come on, y'all. This is what one of my friends, when I brought up this question, was talking about is that sometimes people forget the goal in terms of what are you trying to do. If you're trying to achieve equality in the world, you do have to realize at some point that the goal is not that we basically to go to the old Eddie Murphy
other
skit.
people.
Exactly. It's not to kill the white people. The goal is that we all get to a place in life where we're standing alongside each other, but doing it in a more equal and an equitable fashion than what our systems and what our countries have done before. So the key thing is, let's not act like this is ahistorical. And that's a lot of times the problem with these arguments or these discussions or these things, is that we want to act like things are ahistorical. There's a reason why you're getting this backlash of gender or race going such an extreme, because there were institutions, there were systems that basically went the other way in favor of one particular ethnic group. So now that some people get power, and you've heard me say this on the channel before, instead of getting to a point of balance, it's like, well, we've got to rectify by going all the way to the other end. Because some of my white friends used to tell me all the time, the way these guys talk, there's no room for white people at the table. And I didn't believe them. Until then, it started becoming clear over time. Oh, wait a minute. It's like, dang, they just like, well, you're a white man, you got nothing to say. And I got that, and I experienced that when somebody basically told me, because I was a cis male, I couldn't participate in the conversation. Well, good luck with that, because the one reasonable ally you might have had is taking 2 steps back now after getting exposed to that nonsense. It's like, no. So yeah, as an audience, and you know how I felt this, Wes, despite people trying to take typos and turn them into Freudian slips, if you don't like something, don't buy it. I ain't saying support. I'm saying don't buy it. I'm a customer. I'm not Marvel's patron, DC's patron. I'm not Netflix's patron. I'm not this patron. I am your customer. You give me a product that I like, I'll watch it. You give me a product I like, that I buy it. If I don't like it, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to watch it. And it may come down to, because you have the bucks or the access or the support or whatever it is to keep funneling this stuff at me anyway, I do not have to watch it, and I do not have to purchase it at the end of the day. You still have the autonomy.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's so weird that it's at the beginning. First, it was toxic masculinity, being too masculine, maybe being too maybe violent or too aggressive. And that was just any form of like masculinity is just that's terrible. You can't be proud to be a man, or you can't have any type of masculinity. It's like, listen.
And that was the point that one of my friends brought up when we were talking about this, is that a lot of the problem here is that none of us have a common understanding of anything. So in other words, it's not even like, so what does it mean to be a man? Okay, so does being a man mean what it used to be back in the day, which was Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan, or the Terminator, or Stallone as Rambo, or whoever the other guy was, or Rocky Balboa, or whatever it is? Because we had this idea of manhood where it's like men aren't even supposed to cry if they feel like crying. It's like there is a case to be made that our definition of what it means to be a man, can be expanded. There's a difference between saying the definition can be expanded to saying, oh, it should get thrown out the window. Because sometimes somebody's got to punch somebody in the mouth. Sorry, yeah, I said it on YouTube. Somebody's got to punch somebody in the mouth, because the thing is, dude, you're bugging. Now that's old. Now I'm dating myself. You're bugging. You're out of order. You're out of line. Sometimes somebody's got to knock somebody upside their head. Now, before we get to that point, is all this negotiation and looking out for each other's emotions. Is how you doing? Is that part of it? Absolutely. But at some point, someone's got to take a swing at somebody. Now, is that the purview of the male, or is that the purview of the female? Because now we know, now that we're looking at UFC, there's some women out there who could probably whip my behind fairly easily without thinking about it. So the thing is that we're having discussions now based on everybody's individual idea of what this is what a man should be. This is what a woman should be. The man should provide and pay all the bills. The woman should never provide. If the man is in a relationship where he's not the sole provider, he is not a man. Gotten that crap.
A lot of my definition of being a man, just from the way that I conduct myself and the way I look myself, has a lot to do with responsibility. And that's what it is. But you're right. If push comes to shove, my wife has some expectations of me, and I'm going to meet them. You ain't gonna, certain things ain't happening.
That's right. And that's the other part of conversation that nobody's being honest about either. It's like, yeah, you can push all this. You can say that this is what it shouldn't be. But it's like, from the same people who I've heard saying that, how you feel is important to somebody else's human right, will also be the same person saying, why is it that I as a woman am expected to take care of the kid and do this and do that? Oh, you mean you would want a man to take care of some of those responsibilities? And you don't want to start coming off as misogynistic or anachronistic or Neanderthalish and all that. But it's like, we're not being clear about what we mean with these definitions. And we're not being honest about what our expectations are. And the thing is, in some cases, things change. Things change. And in some cases, they only change. Some things weren't true to begin with. So like where people will often, now I'm a Christian.
I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I feel 100% masculine about it. I have no problem staying home and taking care of my boys. Yeah. I love it.
And there's a whole group that I'm a part of that would say that you're not a man for doing that. And all I can say to them is the same thing I say to Christians about women in leadership in the church, which is, who was Deborah then? Who is Deborah? Until you answer that question, stop talking to me. So it means these things that we're talking about now, these definitions that we're talking about now, we have to start taking a real look at how we got here, how we got to these things. So it's like what I say about writing all the time is that you have to learn how to break the rules with a purpose. In other words, you have to understand the rules. You have to understand the history of them, how you got there. Then if you're being purposeful about it, then at least you know what you're trying to get to. Other than that, you're just lashing out. Because now this came up because you had sent me an article about this actor Billy Porter, who's going to basically play a non-gender conforming fairy godmother in this Amazon Prime's remake of Cinderella. So I looked into it and looked up an interview about what he was talking about it. So now in terms of the conspiracy aspect of this, if these guys are conspiratorially trying to basically change gender and specifically go after the gender of black men, they did a great job getting their cover story together. So basically, what Billy Porter said was that whoever created the Cinderella story had put forth the idea that magic was something that didn't have gender. It basically was like, it's like people ask a question about God. Is he male or female? They're really, or is he just this cosmic being or entity? Can you really assign a pronoun to God? So it's the same thing about magic. So apparently the whole idea of a genderless or non-gender conforming fairy godmother came from the fact that since magic has no gender identity, those who physically manifest as a magical being shouldn't have one either. Great front-facing story. I can't fault it. If that's their story, they're sticking to it. It's like, okay. Then there's the other part of it, which is the other question you asked me, specifically black men, are they trying to feminize? Then it's like, well, why couldn't the white guy play that role?
I'll tell you this.
It's like, well, go ahead.
My wife is in the Philippines. It's a different culture.
Mm-hmm.
She's aware of things. A lot of the things that are hot topics in America just aren't hot topics in my house.
Oh.
I showed the picture to my wife and I said, is this a movie? Is this a Cinderella movie that you want to watch if this is the fairy godmother? She said no. I said, you wouldn't want the kids to see this? She goes, no. She goes, there's enough going on right now. They're confused enough as it is. This is too far.
And I'll say this, until you brought this up to me, I never heard of this guy. I never heard of this show. I never heard of this guy. I didn't even know that he was on Sesame Street in the dress that he had when he was at the 2019 Oscars, which I also didn't watch. I had no idea who he was, what he was doing, and God bless him.
Wonder why people don't watch the Oscars anymore. Could it be a lot of
there's other reasons? There's other reasons why I watch the Oscars.
The ideology that you can't stop having pushed on you, and then everyone's got to make a statement now instead of just celebrating the movies.
Well, that's what it is. And like I said, people do it because, and we have to be real about this. People do it because the thing is, there are people, and I'm not going to say they're the majority of us. I'm not going to say it's large, but the thing is that it's simple. My personal feeling about it is that everybody has the right to exist and live their life the way they want.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the only way that you can sort of guarantee that or secure that is you have to normalize it. You have to normalize it. Because I remember when I was still back in New York, and this was over 10 years ago, and there was a gentleman who used to ride a train who clearly was either transitioning or transgender. And there was this guy that one time we got on the train. He used to be on a regular commute, but this one time the guy got on the train, and he's literally sitting across from this person and just staring at him. Ill intent is clear, not giving this person any respect that you give any other person. And then basically the other guy just says, what is it? You want to F me? And then it just kind of blew up. It kind of blew up from there. And a lot of people got in between them. Because the thing is that person who was transgender did not have to put up with that. You don't have to agree with somebody's lifestyle. You don't have to agree with the choices they make. You don't have to agree with the way people present. But the simple fact of the matter is they have a right to exist just as much as everybody else. So the right to live their lives and to be happy and have a good quality of life. Now, at the same time, having said that, if you're going to go into a public forum, if you're going to something like Sesame Street, and I don't think Mr. Porter was under any delusions about the kerfuffle that would come out of him being on a kid show in a black dress. But the thing is, that's up to him and the good people of Sesame Street to navigate that. Because the thing is, the rest of us have opinions too, and people, as they did. I thought it was a silly take. I thought it was a silly stance to take from the good senator, I believe it was state senator from Texas, who objected to his tax dollars being used that way. But I think there was other ways to go about it. But those are the risks that you run. That's what you're going up against when you're trying to normalize things that have traditionally not been considered normal. I mean, there were people who had problems with Watchmen, with this very issue that you are raising the question, where you took the remind me what the character's name, the Hooded Justice. Yeah, no, it was the Hooded Justice character, who basically in the comic, I believe, I'm pretty sure it was a white guy in the comic, but they made him into a black guy in the comic, and then they went ahead with the theory that basically he was involved in a homosexual relationship with Captain Metropolis. And there were a lot of guys I know who were just like, it was like, really? Yeah, really? But Lou Gossett Jr. took the paycheck. The guy who played the Justice took the paycheck. Hey, and a friend of mine said even with that, he was saying that he felt that part of it was that Hollywood is pushing this basically non-gender or non-gender conforming or just challenging sexual identity in general in Hollywood in the stories that they tell. That a lot of times some of the black actors and actresses may be taking the roles because they need a paycheck, and those are the roles that are being offered to them. It's like I said, I don't like robbing people of their agency. If somebody is playing a role,
here in the Philippines, transgender identity is quite normal. If I go to mass with my wife, you will see couples with their transgender transgender couples, gay couples all over the place. My wife has several transgender friends. They come over to the house from time to time around my children. But that's on our terms. We get to decide that thing. That's the problem I have. It feels like entertainment is trying to pry themselves into our lives, trying to influence our own children, and they're not being upfront about it. I think is probably the worst part a lot of times.
So let me ask you this then, Wes. So I know you're saying that it's on your terms. So what do you think in terms of it being on your terms is different when they're being exposed to it in the public in general? Like, say, if you're going to church, or if you're going to the mall, or if you invite someone into your home, as opposed to it being on television. What to you is the key difference in terms of that interaction or that exposure? Because
when those people come to my house, my wife will speak to them beforehand. Be like, hey, this is the way they're coming. You can't be too provocative, please.
No public displays of affection.
Well, now we've had both of my brother-in-laws are gay. They've seen guys kiss. That have. Okay. There's nothing we can do about that one. They literally live next door, and it. But you know what I'm saying? It's on our terms. We get to decide when it happens. You don't just throw it in there without it being unannounced. That's my thing.
Yeah, and I got it. It's like I said with the I think we were talking about this right before. Netflix, I think it was Netflix, had a show about I think the show was called She-Ro, which is about a little kid who would turn into a superhero, but when he turned into a superhero, he would turn into a girl. So apparently my kids had gotten about 3 episodes into it before I got him to that they were watching it. So I said, okay, guys. I said, I get why you're watching the show, and I get why it might not be a big deal to you, but do your old man a favor. Let's pump the brakes on this one for right now. And if you have any questions, talk to me about it. But I think we're going to wait till you get a little bit older till you can start watching. Till you can start watching some of that. So I hear what you're saying. It's like we have friends who are gay, and it's like I don't know if my kids have necessarily picked up on the fact that they're gay yet, but it's just like I agree with you in this sense that when they start asking the questions, you want to be a part of that conversation. Yes. You want to be able to steward that conversation and to be able to guide that conversation without them getting exposed.
Everything. They pick up on everything.
Oh, yeah, no, we were watching a show called Make It or Break It. And my wife gets on my case about me watching Married with Children in front of the kids because some of the more racy material with that. So I'm like, so we're watching this show Make It or Break It, and there was a scene in there where I don't know if people have ever seen the movie No Way Out, and I'm gonna spoil it for you. So there's a scene in No Way Out towards the end where Gene Hackman plays a politician, and he has this assistant. Yeah, and he basically just out of nowhere kisses him. So then we're sitting there watching this Make It or Break It show, and I said, oh, here it comes. And my wife's like, what are you talking about? Then boom, one of the guys kisses the other guy who's been his longtime best friend. The girl's like, oh! My wife was like, oh! And I said, but I can't watch Married with Children in front of the kids. She says, the difference is you're okay with it. And I'm like, welcome to the real world.
Love Married with Children.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's great. I mean, yeah, this is the later seasons where it's just like, oh, I got to be every other word. It's like, okay, cover your ears. You got to do all that kind of nonsense. You got to start previewing episodes. It's what happened with Supergirl. With Supergirl, we were watching that and moving along, and now I find myself as a parent for a variety of reasons. I got to watch. If the kids start getting interested in something that we watch, you got to watch like 3 episodes ahead for any potential landmines. So at the very least, you could strategically distract by going, hey, what's that over there? You just say, okay, cover your eyes now. They say, can we look now? No, not yet. No, not yet. Okay, now you can look. Now you're back to the story.
Yeah, there's so many things that when you're watching them, like when I was single beforehand, it's like, oh, this is good, wholesome entertainment. Then I started watching with the kids, like, forgot about that.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't such a big deal when I was 25, but now that I'm 40, I got 3 kids. I was, all right, we can't watch this one. Let's go back to.
And here's the funny part. And here's the funny part. And there's people in Hollywood understand that, and that's why it's like I use Madonna. Madonna is always an example of this, but I think if Snoop Dogg said something along these lines, it's like, look, dude, they were young when they were doing all this, challenging the system and all this kind of stuff. That's just tell people all the time. Don't worry. They'll be talking different when they're a mom and a dad. They'll be talking different when they're a mom and a dad because they're not going to. Madonna is not going to expose her daughters to truth or dare like she exposed the rest of us to truth or dare. Okay, she's not going to do that. Snoop Dogg is not going to expose his kids to gangster rap or whoever it is, Lil Nas X, what he's doing right now. For those of you who don't know, that's another example of there were things I was perfectly walking on the world, around the world, ignorant of, until other people threw it in my face. He's not going to expose his young kids to Lil Nas X the way he thought it may have been okay to expose us and other teenagers to some of the content he was putting out, other people's kids. Yeah. It's like, it's different when you have kids. Anybody who says otherwise just does not know what they're talking about. It doesn't mean that you're not saying, oh, I'm going to be against my kid wearing a dress, or I'm going to be against my kid being gay. I'm going to be against my daughter identifying as a boy. That's not what people are saying. What people are saying, exactly what you're saying, is I want to have that conversation with them on my terms, on our terms. So that way, when they have to go out into the world and deal with this, then they'll have the right support system to do that. Because with all due respect to everybody in Hollywood, I have friends who work in Hollywood. I enjoy a lot of the work that creators do. It's like sometimes you guys are doing stuff. Yeah. I don't know if it's a profit motive thing or whatever it is. You're not being mindful of basically.
Bro, I think they are mindful. That's my. I think a lot of it's like purposeful.
Oh no! I say I don't mean like mindful that you don't know what they're doing. I mean like just mindful of like, yeah, I got a kid, and one day you're gonna have a kid too. So if you're gonna wrap this up, like I think one of the now some people go, oh, that's censorship. The rating system is cool because it lets you know what you're dealing with, or at least it gives you a heads up. And at that point, if your kid is playing TVMA video games or watching TVMA TV, that's on you. Okay, they let you know beforehand. Sometimes my kids will come up and say, "This is okay to watch." I'm like, "What's the rating on it?" They're like, "What are you talking about rating?" I said, "Those 4 block letters that come up before the TV show starts. What did it say?" Oh, okay, never mind. I'll go about their business. Say, because and it's like, and you're not doing it to hide it from them. Because believe me, we all know about the culture of the playground. If you don't hear from me, they'll find out some other way because there'll be songs in the car about you'll be driving with your kids and the red song on the radio come on, and you ain't played the song in front of them. I'm looking at my wife. Are you playing this in the car? And they know the word hitting the brake, coming back on the all that. It's because they heard it at school. That's like, oh well. So you still want to have a boundary though, that when they come into your home, it's like, yeah, you're not listening to that. There was a reason for it. And when I do get home, where did you hear that song? What do you think that's about? Do you think it's appropriate to be listening to that? Then sometimes you got to have a conversation with some people at the place where they heard it at. But yeah, you're right. It's when it comes to kids, it's different. Adults, it's have at it. It's like, but at the end of the day, I am in full agreement with Mr. Porter on this particular thing. He's the actor who's playing the fairy godmother in the Cinderella remake. Is that just remember, everybody, you don't have to watch this stuff. If you don't like it, don't watch it. You don't have to support it. You don't have to buy it. It doesn't make you a miserable human being. Or as one of my friends, I posed the question to them, and he said, yeah, they're trying to feminize black men. And if you try to bring it up, they'll call you a racist homophobe. Okay, you're not necessarily a racist homophobe because you basically don't think that black men should be feminized in every role that they play. And if you want to get a sense of what I'm talking about in terms of not only the quote-unquote feminization or challenging the gender stereotypes and also the agency of the people who do it, Anthony Mackie played what I thought was a very brave and controversial role in an episode of Black Mirror, if you haven't seen it, where basically he plays a guy who has a childhood friend, used to play video games all the time. The technology evolves to the point where you can play the video game in VR with full sensory experience. And so in the video game, one guy's playing as a male character in the fighting game, and the other guy's playing as a female guy in the video game. And one of them decides to kiss the other one, and you can go from there. And a torrid affair ensues. So the thing is that, hey, look, Anthony Mackie's a grown man. The other black guy who played the role of that is a grown man. Black Mirror put it out there. You can check it out on Netflix anytime you want to. And the simple fact of the matter is, welcome to the new frontier, everybody. Now, do I want my kids watching that? No. Do I watch it? Did I watch it? Yeah. I'm a creative type. Oh, let's see how I handle this. But best believe, son, they ain't pulling no punches. So you don't have to watch it. If you don't care for it, don't support it. But support it, but you don't have to watch it, and that much is true. So I admire Mr. Porter for that part, for Billy Porter for that part. When the brouhaha came up on him being about Sesame Street, and he said like, well, why is everybody so concerned about what I do in my bedroom? I agree. I said, why is it that if you don't like it, don't watch it? I agree. And I was like, he doesn't seem to be particularly naive about the fact that when he went on Sesame Street with Elmo and a dancing penguin in a full-on dress, that this wasn't coming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on. That's as they say, it's on. So it's on.
All right, Javade, I appreciate your perspective in this conversation.
Oh, most definitely.
And
if anybody's got any follow-up questions,
that can tackle the hard subjects, not get me kicked
I'm
off
the only guy
platform.
stupid enough to tackle the hard subjects.
All right, later, buddy.
So hopefully we'll both be on YouTube as of tomorrow. But go ahead.
Hopefully.
Talk to you later.